In the interest of transparency, here are my stats for Cuphead after recording. Cuphead was originally announced in 2010. It was then previewed at E3 in 2014 before finally being released for Xbox One in 2017. With a pair of patient developers and their well-timed remortgage, the delays paid off, selling over 6 million copies so far and winning over a dozen awards for art style, music, and an expansion. The lattermost also having a colorful history with delays. It's hard to argue the game's critical reception. However, amongst the game journalists and general public, its difficulty garnered the infamous title of Cupsouls, the Dark Souls of platformers. With under 10% story completion and under 0.5% true completion on Xbox, it's easy to see why. At a price point of $26.99 for the full experience, I have to ask, is Cuphead worth the price of admission? The history of gaming is a lucrative topic here on YouTube. Many video game content creators make a majority of their fan base by speaking on history their viewers didn't get to experience or sometimes even play. Cuphead is a product of this secondhand nostalgia. With hub worlds from Super Mario, run-and-gun platforming from Contra, a Mega Man-esque weapon system and boss selection, a basic story from every 2D run-and-gun ever, and a hand-drawn rubber hose animation from the Steamboat Willie era, Cuphead is the perfect game for this age of virtual secondhand smoke. Speaking as someone who made a semi-career of studying this game, I can attest to the plethora of young adults my age that watch my videos who, like me, were not born or just born as these games were in their heyday. Aiming for this kind of audience usually feels like a cheap shot, an easy target for easy money. However, Cuphead's 7-year development cycle boasts otherwise. Where the dominant AAA titles couple the reuse of assets and engines that have long been outdated, and predatory yearly releases such as 2K and Call of Duty, Cuphead took the longer, harder route of hand-drawing everything in the game. This is the grueling reality of 30s animation, and so it is the grueling reality of Cuphead. Instead of loot boxes, DLC weapons, or players, or other pay-to-win practices, everything the player has in Cuphead must be earned by the player. This is the grueling reality of 80s video games, and so it is the grueling reality of Cuphead. There's no online play. If you need to be carried through a level, you have to invite a friend over to your physical couch for classic couch co-op play, and it makes the enemies much stronger. This authenticity to their inspirations is what makes Cuphead a well-timed love letter rather than a low-down gimmick. Even when faced with substantial monetary conflicts due to these choices, Cuphead founders Chad and Jaron Moldenhauer chose to refinance and remortgage their home rather than take the easy way out. Cuphead, Cuphead's history, and Cuphead's developers have earned our respect. While a nice side note, history may mean little to the masses if the actual game isn't fun or interesting to play. Cuphead holds water here as well. After losing a rigged game to the devil himself, you forge your own path through the Inkwell Isles as you harvest souls, lest the devil takes your own to satisfy the debt. And there are no generic enemies here. The 30s habit of giving every object a face is in full effect, for your enemies are everything and anything. You'll fight planes, trains, and automobiles. You'll beef with flowy flowers, starstruck dice, and star signs. Casino claw machines and poker chips, bad acting and pirates, dragons and clowns. The diversity is dizzying, the alliteration's amazing, and the expansion was effortless. The actual playing fields are just as diverse. Cuphead demands you be comfortable with flat ground and moving platforms, auto-scrolling both vertical and horizontal, and you'll have to switch gravity and fight upside down. Take to the skies and venture underground. They will always keep the locations fresh and the gimmicks memorable. To do the actual fighting, you'll have to patronize Pork Grinder's Emporium for just as diverse variety of weapons and charms. Some of these weapons will be semi-auto and some bounce, some will go backwards. Charms can either give you extra hit points or take them. They can build special meter or give invincibility, and this is where the game truly shines. Player creativity controls the replayability. After beating a boss and getting comfortable with the patterns, you are free to challenge yourself in the most bizarre ways that you can manage. Sure, you could beat every boss with a homing attack and 2 extra hit points, or you could do a one-hit challenge with the base weapon. Why pick the boomeranging roundabout for a boss you usually run away from when you could equip the shotgun-like spread that demands your front-facing and as close as possible? These kinds of options are an absolute necessity when a game's runtime is based on its difficulty for any kind of replayability. It's the same reason why Dark Souls players like Yimfa beat the game without moving the left stick, and it is incredibly rewarding to beat this game without collecting coins or using the lowest damage per second setup. Trust me, I should know. Whether the challenge is just playing the game or your own personal curated nightmare, Cuphead looks, plays, and sounds amazing. Speaking of sounds, Cuphead spared no expense in this department either. They won the DICE 21st Annual Awards for Outstanding Achievement in Original Music, and they're proud of it. So proud, in fact, you can buy the game's soundtrack, stream it online, or even purchase the sheet music. It's incredibly accessible. They even allow us YouTubers to use their music in our videos without threat of copyright. This permits the music you're hearing now and throughout this very video to be from the official soundtrack. Now, given the 30s animation, it's only fair they modernize 30s jazz / big band / ragtime blend, or at least have their friend Christopher Madigan modernize it. Nearly every track is fire in its own right and perfectly captures the environments they play in. I usually prefer to turn off music in most games and run Spotify in the background, playing whatever I see fits the game or whatever I currently want to listen to. What a wonderful world. I wholeheartedly and enthusiastically think my own music fits most games, and having my own Spotify link in the description below is in no way a shameless plug. For Cuphead, however, I can't bring myself to play anything but what the creators intended. When I'd rather listen to jazz than music I created, you know they've done something right. However, they didn't do everything right. Although fun for challenges, over half the charms, weapons, and 2 of the 3 super arts that I forgot to mention are practically useless for practical play. This could very well be a personal problem, but I found the Equippable balancing issue to be rather disappointing. On my first run-through of the game, I almost never deviated from the Smoke Charm Roundabout Super R2 combo, assuming I had access to them. It thoroughly solved every problem the game threw at me. I also take issue with the foreground on some of these levels, as it can block your vision from seeing attacks and enemies, resulting in what I found to be unfair deaths. Not to mention the game already has what can only be described as a dirty film layer, with lines and spots constantly flickering on the screen. The layer definitely fits the theme they're going for, and you get used to it after a while, but it would have been nice if they toned down on additional foreground visuals. I'm sure the majority can find a fun challenge in guesswork and discovering favorable positioning or carefully thought out movement to avoid and plan for the unseen, but I'm not into it. Cuphead and the Delicious Last Course is more than new old school gaming repackaged, and more than a clever acronym for DLC. It's a smart game, an honest game, a beautiful game, and a very, very difficult game. So at a price point of $26.99, I have the answer. Is Cuphead worth the price of admission? Yeah.